Welcome back to another video on Gearsaw Studios, and today I'm going to be showing you how to build yourself a Spruce Mansion. It's completely survival friendly and functional for all of your daily needs. Storage rooms, furnaces, crafting tables, and it even can contain a nether portal without having any weird circumstances with it being too noisy. Along with that, we have a horse stable downstairs just to make sure everything works out. So without further ado, let's investigate how it'd go right about this. Start off by getting yourself into a taiga. You can see here, we have a nice deforested area here, and we have some nearby hills for some variance. Usually I recommend you don't have to go on completely flat terrain, but I think this is one of the builds where that actually works. Now, place down some tuff. You can see like this, and then we're going to place down just a random number of blocks. Then divide that into segments of 3. Make sure this is towards the front of your building area. You can see here, just extending it, now we have a line. The exact number is not very important. But still, you can see we add some stairs like this. We will gradient this later. We should clear out some more trees just to make sure none are close to the build. So let's handle that real quick. Now, once we're done with this, later on in the video, we're going to make these tough walls extend out a little, so don't get too attached to building something behind them. So we can see here, we're just going to make it a bit more 3D, and then we're going to add more segments to it. It's pretty simple, but this is part 1 of the building, because this is really 2 houses pressed together. So let's build these pillars very quickly, and now we have ourselves 5 in the front, 3 on the side, and 4 in the back. Because we want to have an emergency exit in the back, that's why I removed some of it. Then flatten the terrain like this. Once you flatten the terrain, then we can zoom back out and we can start worrying about the insides of the walls. However, do note I want you to bump out the walls first before doing this, or else you're going to lose a lot of time. So review that little top right footage one more time if you need to. Now right into it. We're going to start with a simple block. This time it's going to be cobbled deep slate. However, we're going to replace it with a gradient later on. But still, something like this gives a general idea of what color we want. So right here we have this, and we have 2 gradients at the side. Pretty much the idea is we speckle the blocks into it. However, do note I'm going to spread a little bit of misinformation. So once I apply these gradients, suddenly they've shifted and changed color. So hooray. Now, we also run into another issue. This looks pretty drab as is, so in this case, I'm going to add some landscaping to it to cover up that nice gray gradient we had to devise. The obvious answer to this is spruce leaves. However, I'm going to advise you, don't do that. We want to have multiple leaf kinds in the build, and since we have a unique color here, I went with acacia instead. Of course, you can use other leaves for this, but I thought acacia worked pretty nice because it has a little small leaves on it, and it's not distinctly recognizable like jungle is. Now, on top of this, notice the gradient it was tough stone, cobblestone, then light gray wool. Up here, we have a layer of dark oak. This will separate our foundation from the walls. And we're going to have little segments here. You can see how they line up. However, I'm going to tell you this. I'm actually going to make an example out of this and tell you why you shouldn't do this. Because this is actually bad building practice. So you can see here, we have a simple segment and it lines up perfectly with our leaves. And you can imagine exactly what we're going to do next. That's right, we're going to tile it. And you can see, yeah, that's not going to work out very well. Since our areas line up perfectly and our segments are nice and rectangular, it means we cannot do much in terms of height or size variance. So this is extremely limiting. Combined with the fact that this is going to receive a roof later, like most houses do, this is going to turn into an issue. Thus, I recommend not doing that. Instead, using these leaf blocks here to measure, we're going to make some bigger segments instead. Of course, depending on the size of your build, you can modify this as needed, but I recommend making your segments odd numbers of blocks. And you can see how that works out. The middle segment will be bigger, and this is the one that we're going to have the bump out on, hence why I told you to bump out the build. So you can see we have a much better proof of concept here when we do not follow the simple segmentation pattern. Although the walls do not line up with the leaves very well, suddenly this makes the build a lot more realistic and just generally better. So you can see here, Now with the bump out added, you can see exactly where it was. Now we actually have something going on. You can also add the entrance of the build here if you don't want to make a porch. If you want to make a porch, then you just do a small little platform, an extension of the foundation. However, I do not showcase how to do that later in the tutorial, so you can always ask away or try devising it yourself. Now we have the tall window here, and yes, this is just how I do it. We also need some way to divide it and a way to gradient it, and this is fortunately pretty easy. Right here, you could just speckle in some various white blocks. However, that's not a very good plan. It's just going to make your build look noisy, if you get what I mean. Instead, I recommend white concrete from the bottom, to white concrete powder, to white wool, to snow. But that comes a little later. Right now, we just want to frame our windows. We have ourselves a lot of dark oak, and we have ourselves some spruce to connect the various segments together. Use some stairs in order to provide a little bit of engraving into it to make sure it's not completely flat. Additionally, on the back side, you could add a door on the second floor and a staircase down. However, I eventually just add it to the first floor, so there's windows on both sides and it keeps it symmetrical. Now, we can really see how this is going to become a house. Ironically, despite how much effort we're putting into this white segment isn't actually very good for survival basing, and I end up turning it into a massive decorative room since the rest of the base was able to hold everything. For now, let's talk about our windows. Instead of just normal glass, we go with some stained glass in order to make murals. I go for a simple black, well not black, but monochrome gradient with yellow. I don't recommend using black for windows actually. So now we have this, and we're going to make the ceiling, well the roof, warped. Copper is a good alternative though. However, the brightness of it makes it a little bit unorthodox. You could try mixing them, but I'm going to be honest, I do not advise that. Instead, dark prismarine is the only thing I found that goes with warped planks, unless you have wool stairs and slabs. In that case, you can try incorporating that into it. So now, we're going to devise the roof, and right here is actually a scrapped concept of mine. I wanted to go for a flat roof originally to give it a manor-like look, but this might not work for all builds. You can judge and see, do you like this one, or do you like the second one I present a little later. But regardless, if you do have a flat roof, whatever you do, make sure you have some lighting blocks. Now, we hide them with carpet, and this makes sure that the build is lit up at night. So, if you ever do a flat roof, keep this in mind. However, I end up going for the big pointy one instead. Notice how, since we have a segment that juts out, we have a segment of the roof that juts out just the same. This is completely okay. We're also going to make sure that the dark oak lines up well. But for now, this is a simple roof, and we're going to decorate it a little bit more in a moment. Make sure the edges are dark oak though. Then, for this, go to the middle of the roof, make sure it's an odd number of blocks if possible, then add a little bit of dark oak, and then we're going to make the roof arch like this. When you do that, it gives it a bit more of a whimsical vibe rather than a completely realistic one, and this really helps sell the shape of the build. So we can remove some blocks here, and we'll have some more of the deeper roof exposed. So now we have all of this, and we're going to continue on with that kind of roof. And you can see here, works absolutely splendid. The side that's not going to be connecting to the second house in this can arch outward a little. Now, in order to make sure this roof doesn't end up too boring, we're going to add dormers to this, as in a little segment of another room. So we're going to attach that on, and you can see how that works. It's essentially just a little house. Pause to take a look. All the rules of building the walls down there apply up here, and we have some deep slate as a bit of a foundation for it. So now we have this, and we can either turn it into a bedroom later, which I do in fact add, or we can just simply section it off with a little bit of black concrete and lighting. Alternatively, the black concrete can be a room that simply is inaccessible and unusable in the actual build. So we do that, make sure none of the glass panes are touching it, and then add a lantern behind it. So that way it lights up the roof kind of like the carpet was meant to do. So we have that going on, and hooray, the build is looking a bit better in this sense as well. So now let's keep going. The sides of the build now have a dark prismarine gradient, or really just the front for now, but I'll talk a bit more about it in a moment. We can see the exact specifics of the build, and we can see how exactly the side bows outward. Pause if you need to take a look, but I do talk about it a little bit more later on. and we can see the top of the gradient being snow now. So we have all this, and this house is close to done. We still have to do a little bit of window stuff and the white gradient again. So you can see here, we're just going to add it to the bottom instead of doing the speckled pattern. Now, with that incorporated successfully, we add in some lanterns, and then we have some spruce and dark oak in order to round out the windows. And then, when we have this, makes it look nice and cozy. So you can see, you can make your own designs, but make sure to use spruce shelves and trapdoors for it. And then, the foundation on this side, this can be really any size you want, just make sure it's an odd number. Then, for the front, we also add a little bit of spikes from it, but we also have room for a horse stable in here in order to make sure it's built right into the house. Although it's kind of noisy, still, it's pretty easy to build. We're going to excavate it, make a bit of a rounded entrance, then we do the same thing we did for the windows, for a little bit of a gate to here, and then we're going to add fences, beautify it a little with extra wood, although some of the wood might not be very logical, and then we incorporate the gradient from the rest of the build into here. So doing a little bit of modification, now we have the wall gradient inside, and you can see it's just a simple building process. More of the grass, and then coarse dirt plus podzol in order to make sure this horse stable is realistic. We have hay, and then we have cauldrons, and now we have our horses. So going back out, the rest of the build has successfully been gradiented. We still have a little mistake here and there, but that will be fixed shortly. For the rest of this, big walls of stripped spruce logs. So like this, pretty simplistic idea. We're going to section it off in order to make it look like its own style of build in a moment. And then we're going to expand it all around. Additionally, the foundation here, you'll notice is 1 block taller. This is to make sure there's some height variance in the build. Be sure to do this, because when you have height variance, it makes it just a bit more interesting. When it's all flat, well, your build is going to be flat both literally and figuratively. Now we have ourselves the walls here. They're not super tall right now, and the exact height is still being worked on. Luckily, the exact height also doesn't particularly matter, so you can just eyeball the clip or choose your own height. Of course, recommending odd numbers specifically. The corners can be some dark oak, and then to connect some pillars, we have more dark oak and some stairs. This helps line it up. Then, for the front here, big window, because we all like the big window. The window itself will be the same as the rest of the build with the interesting gradient. So now we have this, and I've applied it to the rest of the build. It doesn't perfectly align with house number 1, but that really doesn't matter. You'd be surprised the amount you can get away with. Additionally, we can gradient it with some sideways mangrove. Be sure to use the wood variation for any windows you might add, so that way we don't get that out of place red texture. Then cut into the rest of the walls like this. These windows will actually be of varying heights in order to provide some interest in the build. So you can choose the design. Do you want the middle one to be tallest, or do you want it to be more crown shaped in the way you organize them? That is up to you. Then, eventually, we're going to combine the roofs of these two builds together and even hide some rooms up here if you want. If you want to make those parts jut out, perhaps try incorporating some shelves into it in order to make it less blocky. Regardless, this is completely optional, but it's a fun little detail you might want to add. Anyways, back to the main build. I decorated the windows, and now we're really getting close to done. We have the roof still, and you can see it's the same exact philosophy as the first one, except when it merges, I design it like 2 separate roofs. Additionally, the dark prismarine gradient, there's a little bit to that. You just make it rise up and replace some of the warped down the sides. You can follow my cursor to see that, but still, you just have a little bit of scattered dark prismarine. And then we have the simple triangle thing as it juts outward in order to have that nice bowed out appearance. Then we build all that, and this actually gets pretty easy. You can also add some acacia or spruce leaves to this in order to make sure the sides of the build don't get too flat, just like this. Now we just keep going. We have the dark prismarine on the roof, and we're going to fill out the rest of the roof just how we did the others. So now we have a completed house. We got the dark prismarine yet again, and then we have all these trapdoors. It's quite costly, but looks very nice. Then when it juts out as the logs go up, we add trapdoors under them. Don't forget the lanterns. And then do this for both sides, and now we have ourselves a very nice house. So this means it's interior time. And this can get a little bit difficult, but fortunately there's plenty of blocks that work well here. So let's go right inside, and you can see, well, it's odd. We can add this door to the back though, and I strongly recommend it, especially if you have a larger build. Otherwise, you're going to waste a lot of time trying to walk around the building. Now, just add in everything you need. Right here, we got the enchanting setup. Notice the use of looms and pillars. We also got the pot of lapis across the ceiling, alternating slabs and trapdoors with spruce leaves going across. And you can just see all the little things I do in here. Of course, this specific clip was recorded post-production, but still, pause and take a look. Now, let's go to the storage room. Lots of chests along the walls. We have a different floor pattern. Make sure you blend it with the first room. And then we have cauldrons, we have spruce leaves, we got furnaces, generally everything you need. And also, we have anvils on the far side of the wall. Then, up here, we need to add some walls in order to make sure it's not one long room. Although, once you add everything down there, there's not too much to add, so I mainly made this decorative. Notice the paintings, the chandeliers, the ceiling is brown terracotta and trapdoors, and we have a more dedicated brewing area back here, along with some carpet to hide the horse stables ceiling. Paintings in here, loads of random trinkets, we have some wool blocks and carpet on the ground, and just a whole bunch of stuff going on in here. And then for the big room, there's also not much you can do in here, especially because the windows means you can't really do much for the walls, and we already used everything we needed. So there's not too much to say about this specific room. So let's go on and decorate it as something else. In this case, a dining room. You can see lots of carpet across the ground. We have some leaves, we have the dragon egg levitating by string, another chandelier, and big arched ceilings. That one you mainly have to eyeball. There's not really a good way to go about that one. But still, take a look at it, pause if you want, and I can give more written instructions if you want to try and copy this exact style ceiling. Although, it's really just down to intuition, lots of stairs and slabs. And then of course, dark oak as your accent, spruce as the main. So we have all this coming together, and now we have to worry about our bedroom. Because we have the dormers up here, it's kind of dark, but we're going to use this area. It's a bit cramped, and especially since we can't have the warped or dark prismarine showing, it makes it kind of restrictive. Fortunately, some green wool halls with a bunch of paintings, and the nether portal at the far end uses a lot of the space already. You can also hide a secret base in here. And then this long hall here, we're going to do the same thing, and we're going to add in the bedroom, removing the black concrete around the dormers. So once you have that in, you are done with the build. So let's do that real quick. In the hall, by the way, notice the armor stand with the gold helmet, so that way we can have easy access for the nether. We have a very simple bedroom. Cyan flooring, and then we have the white gradient with the snow and wool again, the concrete. We got the lanterns, the dark oak, all the things you need, and a chest to store emergency gear. So now we have all that, and we're done with the building itself. Now is part of the more nebulous part. We're going to do a little bit of landscaping for this place to really bring it together and make it look less cookie cutter. This is a big reason why I do some of these less specific tutorials, so that way you can make the changes as you want. So clear some trees, make yourself a path, all nicely like this, then make some bushes, preferably out of a new leaf block. Then we can add benches to this, we can add some lanterns, or we can add some very special lanterns later. Lots of leaves crawling up the build, and then some flowers, and what do you know, we have a bunch going on. Hide the firefly bushes under the ground, and we can look around. The benches, fancy lanterns, we have a bunch of red tulips growing around, and the bushes have resin clumps on them. Additionally, our path goes to the stables as well, and because we have all the tulips around, it really makes it look like our area. You can use this to help yourself from getting lost. So we have that, and then some sweetberry bushes. Notice how we go up the side of this hill, but we can still do some landscaping by having it grow up the foundation. And now, with all this together, it's the end of today's video. If you enjoyed this video, remember, please like and subscribe. Either way, enjoy the rest of your day. Gearsaw